Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Conversation with D. I have my special guest, Keith Andrew, contemporary jazz, funk, and soul guitarist. I had to get it all together. Anyway, so
Yeah.
thank you for coming.
Of course, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So we're gonna get into it. So your new album, Soul Expectations. So
So
I'm
it's actually Soul Expedition, but
Expedition.
I
Soul
like Soul
Expedition. I'm sorry. I'm so
Expectations
sorry.
is good too.
Soul Expedition. Oh my God, like I mispronounced the word. I'm sorry. So,
No worries.
Soul Expedition. I listened to Siyo, which of course that means sky in Spanish. I took some Spanish with all throughout my life. And what
Yeah.
that gave me was, of course, skies and dancing. Like a lot of
Mhm.
beautiful imagery. I definitely got that when listening to it. And also I listened to Cubano. Hold on,
Mhm.
hold on. I wrote it down because I wrote all my stuff down. So Cubano
Okay.
Nights. I also listened to the mix between Stevie Wonder and James Brown. And
Yep.
I'm gonna ask you how that came into place because that definitely was a great mix. And what I want to know is, so growing up in Baltimore, because you're from the East Coast, how did that intertwine into the music artistry that you are at now, into your musical artistry?
Well, that's a very good question. I was born in Baltimore, but didn't spend a lot of time there. Moved to California as a kid, actually,
Okay.
and and also bounced back and forth. We lived in New York and again in Maryland for a couple of years, but I spent most of my time growing up in Southern California and Northern
Uh-huh.
California. But I'd say my greatest musical influences came from growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, where there was a lot of funk, as you know, Tower of Power and Sly and the Family Stone, stuff like that. Plus, there was a lot of rock and cool, very, very creative and eclectic music scene. So I think that's where my biggest influences came from, the mix of soul, funk, and jazz and rock.
And definitely because growing up in the Bay Area, like I mean, I've been to the Bay Area before. It's beautiful. It's a lot of culture and diversity.
Hmm.
And with that being said, I mean, what brought you to the whole jazz arena? Why jazz? Why not another genre?
That's a good question. Well, when I was a
Thank
kid, in high school and stuff, we listened to a lot of R&B. We listened to Tower of Power, Earth, Wind and Fire, the Ohio Players, all that stuff, Cool and the Gang. And we also listened to rock too. Um, but when I was a teenager, someone turned me on to the Crusaders.
you.
I'd say
Mm.
that was the first jazz kind of thing, like jazz R&B
Mhm,
stuff.
mhm, mhm.
So being into R&B seemed like a natural progression into jazz. And when I was about 20, 19 or 20, a friend of mine turned me on to George Benson. And when
Mm.
I heard George Benson, that was it, man. It blew my mind. That was one of my first introductions into jazz and jazz guitar.
Mhm, mhm.
And George was my hero. He still is, by the way. But yeah, that's what did it for me. But I've always felt that R&B and jazz are very much connected.
Yes, I agree. So I'm gonna let them listen to "It's a Party."
Okay.
And hold on, let me. I'm listening. I'm pulling it up from my phone. So hold on, everybody. Can y'all hear it?
Can I dance?
Yeah, you can no judgment.
Dancing in my car.
And I'm gonna stop it because they will get me. Like if you play so much. So listening to that, honestly, that gave me like a whole vibe from the 80s and the 90s, and that's a good thing. Like it reminds me of the whole jazz scene that was big. Like the whole okay, like the Paul Hardcastles, Najee's, um, George Benson, Herb Alpert, all of that.
Yeah.
And that is like, I mean, to me, jazz is amazing. So I got introduced to jazz when I was little by my dad or whatnot. So like driving in the car, I definitely imagine like, okay, driving in the car, listening, very cool, relaxing, vibing music, easy listening. And that's what I got from that. And so just listening to that, I'm like, okay, I like this. Like I enjoy listening to the album for the most part. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Very relaxing. Which was
Yeah.
needed for the part of this week, honestly.
Right, right. Well, that's the great thing about jazz. I mean, you can listen to it while you're working.
Hmm.
You can listen to it while you're doing other things, and it kind of puts you into a calm state, which I love. Um,
Yes,
but it still is kind of intellectually stimulating, if you will, because it's interesting, as far as the textures and the harmonies and things like that. And yeah, jazz is such a huge subject. The type of jazz I play is contemporary jazz, which is more commercial.
mhm,
A mixture of R&B and rock and everything, kind of fusion. Uh,
yeah,
but then again, the world of straight ahead jazz, traditional jazz, it's a huge subject, which it's really fun to explore.
it is like it's a big world. I mean, with you have like the classical jazz or whatnot, and then you got the contemporary, the modern, all that, and
Yeah.
it's evolved. And I like how they put all the different instruments in it, like the saxophones. But I've never heard anything like that with the guitar before with the jazz. So it
Oh,
was, yeah. I mean, because when I think of jazz, I think of you like I said, the saxophones and the clarinets and the flutes, and you can hear some of the pianos or whatnot, and you hear a little guitar, maybe acoustic, but not a lot of electric. For me, I've never heard a lot of electric, so I'm like, okay, I like the mix of it. So
well, that's the interesting thing. Like in the 30s with the Benny Goodman Orchestra, one of the pioneers of jazz guitar, his name was Charlie Christian.
mhm,
And
mhm,
back then, the guitars were kind of acoustic.
mhm,
They might have had a little bit of amplification, but guitar was definitely part of the big bands.
mhm.
It wasn't featured as much until Charlie Christian. And then, of course, jazz stayed pretty acoustic until, like, I'd say the 60s, when there was a fusion of rock, that kind of more aggressive guitar sound with jazz. So yeah, when you look at the history of jazz and different instruments, it's really pretty fascinating the way things evolve. One of the pioneers that really helped bring the more aggressive guitar to the forefront was Miles Davis,
Yes.
because he evolved from the cool school in the 60s, with
Mhm,
Coltrane and um, the great bands that he had, Cannonball Adderley, all those great jazz musicians. But then he got really into fusion, like
mhm.
jazz rock, with rock guitars and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting the way it evolves.
Yeah, it did because literally, like, I knew it was very new, the whole electric guitar thing. And then another person that comes to mind when I think of well, this is kind of like recent. Um, hold on, what's the gentleman? It'll come to my head in a minute because I forgot what the gentleman's name is. But so performing and traveling around the world, how did that help you with your in your artistry? Because you've traveled to a lot of places.
Yes, well, I'm fascinated by different cultures, and the music of different cultures. I've traveled to South America, Central America, and
Mm.
Asia. I and Europe. I would love to do more traveling. Roots music, like um, music from different countries. Like I played in an African band, as a matter of
Mm.
fact, in San Francisco for a couple years. It was called Zulu Spear, and it was by the guy who was the leader. He was this really funny guy. He was from South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and his name was Sashaba, and he was a real character. He had dreads and stuff, and he was such a great showman, so much energy. And when I first started listening to the music from that part of the world, it just grabbed me. So yeah, world music is another one of my passions,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a whole nother fascinating subject. I'd say the stuff that I like to listen to is jazz that's infused with world music, music from around the
Yeah,
world.
the whole like the different instruments, like the fusion of that. Like I know with the Latin, like in Cilio, and then
Yeah.
Cubano nights or whatnot,
Hmm.
and just here. And then also I've heard the different Brazilian like ones too, like the Brazilian sounds of music or whatnot, and that's really funky too, and fusiony as well. And then also Western Africa, and
Yeah.
a little bit of Australia. It's a lot of yeah. I can name some other countries too, but I can yeah. Those are ones that pop to me that I've heard in terms of music. So
Well, that's the beauty of it, that each culture around the world, most people around the world have their own music, and it's just so cool to check it out and explore
yeah,
it.
it is.
Yeah, it's great.
It is. Like I just found out that Herb Alpert has a jazz and bar, a jazz and grill in LA. It's
Hmm.
really nice. It's called Vibrato. Yeah,
Vibratos, yeah.
Vibrato. It's really nice. And so they have a lot of artists that play there, like jazz mainly, and
Yeah.
they like to stick with that tone, the live music and the live artistry or whatnot. It's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Herb is one of my favorites and one of my heroes. He's an icon,
Yeah, he
not
is.
only of jazz but the record business too.
Yeah.
Founding A&M Records and stuff. But yeah, he's a great trumpet player, and of course,
Hmm.
Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. That really dates me.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And then also can't forget about Roy Ayers. That's
Oh,
another one. Another one. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah.
And
Well, I love listening to straight ahead jazz. Because contemporary jazz and fusion is great, but when you listen to straight ahead jazz, like I've been listening to Miles and Coltrane lately, and it's like, man, that stuff is so good.
yeah, because with jazz, it's so good. Like for instance, I have a record player, and so I put on some Najee, and I was just listening to it, and then I was listening to David
Uh,
Sanborn and whatnot, and
yeah.
I was listening to a song called Chicago. I think it's Chicago something. Anyway, I was
Yep.
listening to it, and so I was like, okay. And the bad part about the record player is that it only has like 4 or 5 tracks on there, so you have to turn
Okay.
it. Like you're
Uh,
listening to it, like, oh, it's a dead silence, yeah. But it was, I mean, I enjoy it for the most part. And then, of course, you have people like Herbie Hancock,
oh
and
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
And then the
Yep.
guy, forgot his name. The one Axel some no, it was Axel F. Axel F was a song. The one from Eddie Murphy movie.
Right. Was that a? Yeah,
Something
that was
Beverly
Herbie.
Hills Cop. Beverly
Wasn't
Hills
that
Cop.
Herbie?
Yes.
Oh,
That
right,
was
right.
so the song was Axel F, but his name was something. I forgot his name. He beat he won a Grammy for the Axel F song.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And I know Herbie, didn't he do the theme for Beverly Hills Cop 2 or something like that? It was like a real big hit.
I gotta
Um,
remember that one you got me on. That would look, I normally know. I think he did something. I'm not sure, but it might have been Axel F. I don't it's the ones
oh,
that's him. Yeah,
oh,
that's
right, oh,
yeah,
right,
Axel F, yeah. So in terms of how can I say okay, so you worked with Jeff Lorber.
He played on my Adventurous Soul album.
Yes. So how was that working with someone that's been in the game for a long, long time?
Well, it was great. I didn't actually have the privilege of meeting him and working with him directly. My producer Nils had a really good connection, and we reached out to Jeff and asked him if he would like to play on my song, and he said yes. So basically, my
Awesome.
producer just he just went over to Jeff's studio and Jeff did it, and I thanked him for it. But yeah, Jeff Lorber was another hero of mine because when I was first getting really serious about guitar,
Mhm.
I heard the Jeff Lorber Fusion. I don't know if you remember that band, but they were in the early '80s, I think. Um, I think that's when they were founded, and interestingly enough, they had a sax player. The sax player's name was Kenny Gorlick,
Mm,
and I don't know if you know who Kenny Gorlick is, but
mhm. I only
Kenny
know
Gorlick,
one song by Jeff.
yeah, yeah.
The one with Karen White.
Oh, well, Jeff
That
has gone
song.
on to yeah,
Yes.
Jeff has gone on to be an incredible producer, and
Yes.
he's an icon of the keyboards. But yeah, I was gonna tell you that Kenny Gorlick ended up becoming the famous Kenny G,
I was
who
about to say that
yeah,
name sound for me. I'm like, hold on. I don't know a Kenny Gormick. I know a Kenny G.
Kenny
Yeah.
G, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah.
But the stuff with Jeff Lorber was really awesome, and he's still a total innovator. I hope to work with him again
Mm.
on upcoming stuff.
Yeah, he's a pretty big, like in terms of production, but I only knew him for like one song, and that was the one song with the facts of something of love or something. But yeah, he was big. So in terms of writing, when you're
Mhm.
writing, what is your process look like?
Well, what I do is a lot of times I'll just start playing
Hmm.
and improvising and experimenting and pretty much experimentation and working through something, playing something, and go, that sounds pretty good. And then play it through, add another idea to it, and go, maybe that's not perfect. And just experimentation. That's a way, just sitting down and playing, coming up with melodies and chords. And then also sometimes I'll go into my studio and pull up like a really cool groove, like a drum groove that's inspiring, and then just start improvising to that and just adding layers as it goes. So that's pretty much my process. And now what I do is, since I've been working with some great producers, I'll come up with ideas and I'll bounce them off my production friends, and they'll say, "Oh, that sounds great. But what if we add this?" And kind of collaborating. And I feel that when you collaborate with people that are talented and good at what they do, have a good track record, you can come up with even better ideas, to
That's
bring
true.
bring the song to the next level. So I love to do that. I love to collaborate, and I think it's a good thing.
It is. It is. With the songwriting process, it could go like different ways. Like I've heard so many people say like different things. And like I guess like what's the hardest thing when you're stuck on something and you don't know where to go with it? And do you ever get to that point where you're like, dang, I'm stuck on this. What am I gonna do? Do you move to the next train of thoughts with a different song in mind? Like, hey, I'm gonna put this on the back burner and go to something else and then eventually pick it back up.
Well, if I'm on a roll, if I feel that I'm working on something
Mhm,
that has some good potential,
mhm,
and then I reach a roadblock, I'll just put it down for a while. I'll go do something else, go work out or go ride my mountain bike or whatever, and 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 then come back to it with fresh ears. Um, and if I really feel strongly about a song, I'll stick to that because I feel that if I jump onto something else, it might dilute the the flow that I'm in. That it might interrupt the flow with the particular song I'm working on. So I'll just get away from it and then come back later, a few hours later or the next day, and inevitably some fresher ideas will appear magically out of nowhere.
gotcha. So you just recently charted with the smooth jazz with the Moth FM. So how did that feel?
Oh, that feels great. That feels great. Dr. Glenn Reese, he's out of the UK.
Mhm.
He has the Moth FM, and he's a great supporter to musicians. As a matter of fact, my good buddy Daryl Walker, that is
Mhm.
featured on my current album,
Mhm.
he's right up there on the charts on that chart, and I'm chasing him. I think he's been at number one for a while, so
Yeah.
I gotta close in on him. I let him know. Keep your eye out.
I mean,
Keep
that's
your eye in
I
the
mean,
back
number
there.
7 is not bad.
Oh
Number 7
yeah,
is
no,
not
it's
bad. That's
good.
pretty good. That's pretty
Oh yeah,
good.
yeah, it's awesome, and I feel blessed and honored, to have my music acknowledged by those folks, and it's great because I've developed some new friends
Mhm.
in the UK and beyond, in Europe and around the world. So that's exciting. And we've also done well nationally on the smooth
Mhm.
jazz charts, groove jazz charts. So yeah, I have a new single coming out early
Okay.
next year. So stay tuned. We're
That's
we're working
awesome.
hard on that. Yeah. So
So in
yeah.
terms of you mentioned the UK and the support, do you notice, I'm sure you notice is that like the support is different. They will support you a lot more than over in the Americas. In America, they really will. Like it's something about them. Like they will know every song. They will know even songs from the B side. They will support you and rock with you like on a whole different level than here. Why do you believe that is?
Well, it seems like with Europeans, the love of music and jazz seems to run pretty deep. Going back to like the jazz musicians
Mhm,
of the
mhm.
50s and 60s, a lot of times, yeah, well, as you probably know, many American jazz musicians ended up moving over to Europe
Yeah.
because there was more work there and they
Yep.
seemed to get more notoriety. Um, which is really interesting. Same with Japan. I think
Mhm.
people in Japan love American music, and they're very supportive. So yeah, we gotta keep on encouraging people to support
Yeah.
jazz in America, of course. But it really is nice. It feels so great to get the support from folks overseas.
Definitely. I mean, they really know the music more than like we do. And I noticed that with a lot of different other genres, not just jazz. I noticed that with like R&B, like the indie, a lot with the indie artists, and also
Hmm.
with some of the old school artists as well. Like they are able to get work over there, so they go over there. They're like, forget
Right.
America, I'm gonna go over there. And I mean, who can blame them? So,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Brazil is big too in the area of support as well. So in terms of collaborations, dream collaborations, who would what would that look like?
A dream collaboration.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first name that pops into mind is George Benson. He's the icon. He's the one of the most innovative jazz and R&B guitar players and singers.
Yeah.
uh, and yeah, I would love to work with him someday. Even study with him. I still am really passionate about learning
Mhm.
new music and new techniques and learning more about jazz because it's such an amazingly complex world, and it's never ending. There's always more to learn. So either studying or collaborating. But I'd say George, that would be a dream collaboration. I'd say working with David Sanborn, somebody like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, icons, heroes. Yeah, yeah.
That would be awesome. Like I'm sure that look, who knows, like in COVID, a lot of interesting things have been happening. Like I tell people like you never know who's watching you. So that definitely is a possibility. So in terms of top female and male vocals, who are your top female and male vocals?
Wow, that's a tough question. Um, well,
They can be in any order.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and any genre,
Yep.
I assume. Well, when I think about jazz,
Mhm.
I think about the great jazz singers like Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan
Mhm.
and who else?
Billie Holiday. Wasn't she?
Oh
She was.
yeah, Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Beyonce.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she's a great singer.
Yeah.
There's
She's
so
pretty
many.
good. She's good. Yeah.
I mean, even eclectic. Someone who's eclectic
Mhm.
as far as an artist
Mhm.
and bass player, Michelle Ndege Ocello. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a badass bass player and a
Huh.
great singer. Very eclectic.
You said Michelle or Michelle?
It's Mush. Is it Michelle or Michelle?
I know who you're talking about because she has this song that was on a higher learning soundtrack. That's got to be her because her name is always hard to pronounce, and you got it right. So that's got to be yeah.
And she's really kind of an interesting person. She's really
She has short
trippy.
hair,
Yeah,
right?
she's
Yeah,
got
now
short
it's
hair.
clear.
She's
Yep.
got a very cool vibe about her.
Yeah, that's her. That's her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah.
she's an iconic musician. She really is.
She's really
Another,
talented.
yeah, another one that comes to mind is Esperanza Spalding.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because she plays is that the cello? The cello? The
I
cello
think
is
she
the cello the big
plays.
one? She plays the cello.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big one. Is that the cello or the? I'm gonna have to
Well,
look at that.
I
Yeah,
know she plays the upright bass. She plays electric bass.
yeah. She
I
does a
wouldn't
lot.
doubt. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that she plays cello.
She plays something. It's what is it? I'm pronouncing it wrong, but she plays the big thing. The
Right.
bassoon, not the bassoon. No, no, that's another instrument. It'll
Yeah, I
come.
think it's
It'll come.
the
It's the
upright.
it's the yeah. It's the I call it a cello. I don't know why I call it a cello when that's
But
small. Yeah,
yeah, she's a great singer too.
she
Great
is.
singer.
She did a tribute to Prince on BET, and then she did
Oh yeah,
a song. Yeah, yep, yep.
yeah. She's amazing. She is amazing.
And
Uh,
then oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't know how I did that. Yeah, I got caught up in. I was like, who else?
well, yeah, yeah. Well, of course, Aretha. As
Yes.
far as iconic female vocalist. I
Yeah.
definitely, I'd say I'm very, leaning towards R&B.
Hmm.
R&B is definitely my roots and jazz.
Hmm.
Um, so those are my favorite singers, of course.
What about males? You forgot males.
Yeah, well, of course, Stevie.
Yes.
I think George Benson's a great singer. Well, Al Jarreau.
Yeah, I forgot
Uh,
about him. Yeah.
yeah, and who's the guy? His name escapes me. He sang "Don't Worry, Be Happy." Oh,
Uh,
Bobby McFerrin. Bobby
Bobby
McFerrin.
McFerrin. Yeah. Do, 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 do. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Bobby McFerrin. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's incredible. He is incredible. There's so many. There's so many. Deep. Yes,
I
we
know
could
it's a
talk
lot
about
of them.
this.
Yeah. I ask everybody that question because, like, I know I'll get all kinds of answers, and I like that because it shows that everybody's different and everybody likes something different. And then, like, I'll tap in and I'll like add some in or whatnot. You pretty much name some. I mean, these some of them I haven't heard before, so I'm like, that's pretty good. And then you name some that I have heard before, so I was like, okay. In terms of like people have named before, yes. Yeah. I have
Yeah.
too many to name. I could say Aretha Franklin, Shaka Khan,
Ah,
Whitney,
Shaka.
Tina
Yeah.
Marie, Patti LaBelle,
Hmm.
um, Carole King. I love Carole King's voice. I love I just forgot. Oh, not yeah, Joni Mitchell.
Oh,
Um,
Joni. Yeah.
what's the lady's name? Carly Simon. That's my favorite. I love her.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And with guys, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Luther Vandross. I mean, George Michael.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many.
it's so many. It's like, but that's a good thing though. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So I'm gonna show everybody where we can hold on where we can find you.
Okay.
I thought it was up. Where is it at? Oh, hold on one second. The screen is right. Okay, let me swap it out.
KeithAndrew.com.
There we go. Oh, I had to put it in there. So you can find him at keithandrew.com.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a little bit of it right here.
Mm-hmm.
And you also can find him on IG at
Yes.
Keith Andrew Band.
Yes, Keith Andrew Band
Yep. And then
on
what about
Instagram.
Facebook?
Facebook, Keith Andrew Music.
Yes. And this is just
Yes.
some of the stuff on his page. And also make sure you go to the platforms and check out his latest album, Soul Expedition, not Soul Expectations. I said Soul Expectations. And I was
I
looking
like that.
right at the
Can I use that title for my next
Well,
one?
hey, that might be a good thing. Who knows?
Yeah,
And
Soul
so
Expectations.
then you can look at you can go to shop to like find out more like face masks. So yeah, check that out.
We got face masks. We've got T-shirts. We've got signed CDs for people who still have CD players.
Uh,
Although,
they still sell them online somewhere. I've seen them on Amazon or whatnot. So yeah,
yeah,
yep.
for sure,
So
for
make sure
sure.
you check out the page, and then also here's some of the videos, images of guitars.
Hmm. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And we're streaming on Spotify, so you can find my
Yes, go
music
to
on there.
Spotify because that's where I listen to it. I went to Spotify and listened to the album. And make sure, oh, Twitter, Keith Andrew on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And then title. Now, title, you're going to have to type in his name because that's a number. So, y'all see if y'all can see that. And then Keith Andrew Band. And then Keith Andrew Music. YouTube is Keith Andrew. Spotify, type in Keith Andrew. And
Yes.
iTunes, Keith Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
So check it out, everybody.
Yes. Yes.
So I
Well,
did good. I got you. I look. We went over 5 minutes, but
oh, thank you. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate
you
it.
are welcome.
Are we still live?
Yeah, we're still live. So
We're still live.
thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thank you,
And
everybody.
I will announce who the next person is next that's gonna come on. I'm gonna make it a surprise for everybody. I'm doing something
Okay.
different this time. So anyway, thank you so much, and come back anytime. And
I
play
will.
for us. Have the guitar out. I would have asked that.
Yes.
I try to
Okay,
be,
next time.
yeah, the guitar.
With
Thank
soul
you.
expectations.
I know, right? Have a
Yeah.
good night, everybody.
Take
Thank you for
care. Thank
tuning
you.
in. Bye.
Okay. Bye.